Hey everyone, it's Trevor with etrailer. Today we're going to do an overview and installation of the Roadmaster Diode wiring kit for our 2016 Chevy Silverado 1500. Now diode wiring is going to be one of 5 main components for your flat towing rig. You got the base plate as the first, tow bar, then your wiring, your braking system, and then the safety cables. Now diode wiring is important to have on your flat towed vehicle because it is a legal requirement for the signals from your motorhome to transfer to your flat towed vehicle, just to let everyone know what you're doing, because if you're a sedan behind this, you might not realize that it's being flat towed behind the vehicle until you get up close and see the tow bar on it. Now, with the diode wiring kit, you might be wondering, why would you want this over something else like magnetic lights? Well, as vehicles are starting to become more aluminum and starting to become less magnetic every year, it's a little bit harder to find somewhere to put it. Plus also, when you do put it on a newer vehicle like that, you end up scratching the paint and wherever the magnets sit, and it scuffs up, and then you have to run a 4-pole all the way over the top of the vehicle every single time you want to flat tow. With a diode wiring kit, you just take your umbilical and you plug it into your 7-pole, the other side into your 6, and you just go. Now, if cutting into your factory wiring makes you a little bit nervous, don't worry, Roadmaster has another option for you that's really good. They have a 10-inch LED strip that you would stick to the top of your taillight housing, and then you'd run your own wiring all the way to the front of the vehicle, so you still have that plug and go style turn signals. It's just not going to go to your taillight, it's going to go to that 10-inch strip instead. Now, with your diode wiring, the trickiest part typically is to run the 4-pole wire from the front of the vehicle all the way to your rear, but on a truck, it's actually pretty simple to do since it sits a little bit higher off the ground, and you can scoot underneath and you can fish wire it around the frame a lot easier and keep it away from any hot or moving parts. But after watching the installation, if you still feel a little nervous about doing it yourself, you can always use our dealer locator tool to find someone near you that would be able to do this installation for you and get you back out on the road. And with all that being said, we can go ahead and take the truck inside and show you how to get that installed. To begin our install, we're going to go ahead and get our wire routed. As you can see, I already had the fascia off. That's just because we installed these Roadmaster base plates here. So what I did to start was I had some extra wire about approximately where the plug was on the motorhome. So it was about a little off center of the passenger side. And then I kind of routed it over this bar here up to the frame rail and zip tied it to any wires I could find. Then I went around this spring tower here, came out underneath this fender liner and up over our jounce bumper bracket here. Continued to follow the loom all the way down and over any of these jounce bumper towers. I tried to sneak it right behind the hat channel on the front side there. Snaked it along this wire loom over the top of these hydraulic lines, went over this shock mount point, over this control unit, and then out this side here. And you don't have to route it exactly like how I routed it. You can route it however you'd like. Just keep in mind that you're going to want to keep it away from any hot or moving parts while you do that. So what I did after I routed them was I basically took the wires and I just cut in between here for where the green and the white wire was, so it would have been on the sides of these wires. And I just split them back up to the top of the frame rail. I ran the white wire back over the other side of the frame rail because I'm going to ground it next to the spare tire here. And then whenever I cut that, that's going to give me the excess to jump the brown from the taillight to the other side of the vehicle. So for our ground, so we're going right here. I went ahead and I cleaned up the surface as much as I could. And what I'll do is I will kind of bend this wire to about where I think we'll need it. And then I'm going to pull it back a little bit so I can sneak up a stripping tool. And then I'll cut it there. We're going to get that stripped back. Now we're going to go ahead and get our included ring terminal crimped on to that bare wire. Once you have that crimped down into place, we'll go ahead and put a self-tapping bolt right up against the frame. Now we came back up top here. We're going to remove these two T15 Torx bit bolts so we can take out our rear tail lights. And with those bolts removed, all you have to do is kind of just slowly pry around the outside of this. As you do, you'll see those two pins back here that were in place holding it in will come right out. And then from there, all you have to do, take this plug here, pull back on this red locking tab, press down, and then you can wiggle it back and forth to remove it. Now ours also does have an incandescent bulb here at the bottom. All we have to do to pop that out is turn that quarter turn. You'll hear that click, and then it'll come right out. Now we're going to get some of this tape removed to get access to our wires. So this was already kind of started for us, so we're just going to unwind this a little bit. And then if we need to, we'll go back and cut some of the extra tape off to strip back some of this loom. And what we did was we pulled up our excess brown and yellow wire through this little access hole down here, and then we routed our white wire down that we're going to use to tie into our running light signal. And we went ahead and already tested the wires to find out what we would need for our diodes. And the top left pin, which is our green wire here, is going to be the brake signals and the turn signal. And then the bottom pin, or this brown wire here, is going to be our running light signal. We're going to go ahead and get this trimmed to length, and how I figured that out was I just held up the diode, and I was wanting to see where the different connections would go here. And I want to leave a little bit of excess, so instead of going to like the end of this spade terminal, I went to about midsection of the diode, and on this yellow and brown wire, I'm going to go to the outside of the diode right here. And before we get anything hooked up, we're going to go ahead and get these pulled apart, so just be careful, and you can use a safety razor, or you can use pliers like I'm doing, and just kind of cut in between the two there. Take your fingernails, kind of pry in between, and just pull out, and they will slide apart like that. Now our brown wire here is going to go to the brown signal wire on our plug, and the yellow one is going to go to the green for the turn signal and the brakes. And the white wire is going to be the jumper wire for our brown signal to go to the other side. So that will also connect up to this brown wire as well. Now we're going to go ahead and get the running light signal going. And keep in mind you're going to have one diode that will have a yellow spade terminal. That is going to be for these two to connect to each other. So whichever side you run your brown wire to is the side you're going to use this yellow diode spade connector on. What we'll do is we'll take them here, get them out as even as we can, twist them together, and then we're going to take and just cut the top, just the top off. Keep it as even as we can. Take our yellow spade connector, slide that in. Then we'll take our crimpers and get those crimped on. A good rule of thumb, if you've never done any wiring, just give it a little tug, make sure it's in there nice and tight and it's not going to come out. Okay, now we're going to get our running light signal diode hooked up, so cut that off, strip it back a bit. And now when we go to hook this back up to our diodes, the only thing you want to make sure is the spade terminal coming out to the plug goes on the side that says out. And then the side that says in will receive the other two spade connectors. And it also doesn't matter which pin these go on as long as it's on the right side. I repeat the same process on the other side, only difference is we only got one wire coming in instead of two. So we can go ahead and get this adhesive pulled off the side of on the back of our diodes. And then we can get those stuck back together here. And once we have that in place, we can go ahead and tuck the original factory wires kind of back into this loom. And we're going to hang out the other side connected. And luckily for us, it was the same two pins and same two colors of green, brown. If you don't have that same color, just make sure you test the pins. But we got that hooked up. But you'll notice instead of the brown wire like we had on the other side, we ran that white jumper over to this side and connected to the running light circuit here. And then we just connected our extra green wire to here. And that's for our turn signal. Now we also do have a braking system and a charge line kit we're going to put on this vehicle. And then once we get those installed, I'll come back and we'll show you how to wire everything up to the 6-pole. So we got our 6-pole plug and we got all of our wires routed down. We got the 4 for our tail signals and then our 1 towed vehicle charge line. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the charge line because this one tends to get a little bit more difficult to get to as we put the other ones in. But all you're going to do is loosen up that screw, place it down inside of there, and then support it with your finger. And then you'll retighten it in the screw, but be very careful because you don't want to untighten it too much because it can come out and it's a pain to get back in. And you also don't want to tighten it down too much or else you will actually destroy the copper strands and it will not work very well. Once you get in place, just give it a little tug. If it doesn't come out, then you're all good. Move on to the next few. And as we do this as well, there are little letters etched out underneath the screws. It's going to be kind of hard to see through the camera, but as long as you follow that when you're doing this, it's pretty simple. So after we got the power in place, we got the tail markers up here. That looks like that's going to be the ground. Left turn, right turn. So we'll work our way around starting with the ground wire. So we'll split that off, get that in place. And with all of our wires hooked up, we can go ahead and pull up to our motorhome and get us tested out. And now we're going to get our signals tested. So left turn, right turn, brake lights, running lights. And that was a look at the Roadmaster Diode wiring kit for our 2016 Chevy Silverado 1500.